Hello, this is Robert Paltz, and let me get things set up here. There we come. How's everybody doing today? Hey, I wanted to share with you something I fell into, uh, and backed into, you might say. Uh, Not part of my normal thinking modes and everything, but it solved a problem, and then you probably have the problem too. This is a neat approach to the Facebook group and Zotero for writing your memoir. I've tried many times to write mine, so that the future has some idea of who I am, what I did, and how I feel. I'd love to have one for my grandfather, great grandfather, father, and they don't exist. They would be very valuable. So I thought I'd leave one for my children. You listen to any of the family search videos about this. It's very important. So I found this interesting way, and this is the process I went through. And don't let me bore you, but I'll go through it pretty fast. First, we had a group meeting, one of the local genealogy groups I'm in. I'm in five of them. I was attending, and the local library had asked us to submit input for the renovations that they're making in their genealogy department. So we brainstormed, is what you guys like to call it. I call it beanbag. You'll see the picture of the beanbag there. That's where I learned to do brainstorming. It was beanbag at Palo Alto Research Center. The room was just about like that. The one I was in building 2, and we actually had whiteboard on the ceiling and every wall in it. I don't remember many windows, I tell you the truth. I remember a lot of whiteboard. I mean, we wrote on the ceiling. We had a little ladder. We went up there and wrote stuff on. It was basically a free-form area where you threw ideas on the wall and see if they stuck, and everybody else took them down. And sometimes it was very competitive, and sometimes it was very friendly. So anyway, that's what I'm talking about. So we're sitting there talking about this library problem, how to improve it, the genealogy department, and what we would like to see. Well, as a result of that, all genealogy groups are going through all types of activities like this right now in their own self. What happens to the genealogy group that's been meeting forever, and the older members are dying, the younger members aren't coming in, and stuff like that. And where's the interest shift? There's DNA, you got AI, you got full text search. So, and we had a whole list of problems. Sometimes we couldn't go there to do Zoom meetings and all that kind of stuff. So we went through all the stuff that many of you that have been in genealogy meetings are going through right now. And so I, in my mind, started listing what the problems are and defining them. That's the way I work. It's the way I've been taught. I've been in corporate America for 40 years. I'm retired, been retired now. Gosh, I don't know. Anyway, and so I was rolling along there. And when the meeting was over with, I found myself sitting there writing an RFP for an idea I had. Now, I used to do that professionally. I've written hundreds of them. RFPs are response for proposal or request for proposal. That's what it is. And basically, large entities like the government did a lot of military RFPs, and large corporations like Boeing. When they identify they have a problem within their organization they want to fix, they go out to larger corporations and ask them, other corporations that might be vendors for that, for the solution, to provide a request for proposal. And in that proposal, you define, you take their problem, you go through it, and you tell them how you're going to take and solve that problem. So I'm sitting there doing this. I got all this input from that meeting. I also have many other meetings I go to, and they have similar issues. And I've been trying for a long time. I used to be in some of the meetings as in a responsible party. I don't do that anymore. I'm trying to get my genealogy done. And so I've been in a lot of planning meetings on this subject. So I started incorporating all that knowledge into an RFP. It's just the way I think. Well, that led to me thinking about my old employers. And suddenly I had an insatiable desire to reconnect with some of them and see how they're doing. And the way you do that today is you go to Facebook and see if they've got an old employee group. And guess what? My old employers, well, let's see it, has an employee group. And so I went there and went in there and I had I went in there and recently we had downsized. You know, that's what we do when we get old. We start downsizing stuff. And I had a lot of plaques, pictures, pins, employee pictures, all kinds of stuff like that. So I scanned all that before we got rid of it because it was just too much bulk to be carrying around with us. And so I started posting these scans on the Facebook group. That generated all types of people coming back. They worked on, because I asked who worked on these, what did you do with them? Because I was headquarters for most of this. I was a field for a while, but I was in the headquarters. And one of the things for gratification that you never seem to get from enough of in headquarters is how in the world did the field use this doggone thing that you worked on forever and a day? You know, I spent 13 and a half years in this company alone, and I developed quite a few. You know, I was in the development teams for a whole variety of products, and so I wonder what did I put out there and did it work? And that triggered stories from people. And one of them I have brought up here, and this is Nancy Hunter. She was in the field sales organization. Now, I was in the field engineering organization out there. And that triggered my memory of this. And at one point in time, we had sold a product called the 800. It was a fairly popular product. And in the early days, it had been on lease. And the leases were 5 years. And when the new product came out, the customers all upgraded to the new product, which was called the 850 or the 860, depending on which era you were, and returned the 800s. So in Oklahoma City, we had this big warehouse, and it was full of 800s. I mean, chock full. They didn't have room for another one. And what do you do with them? Let me tell you, the word processing environment is a personal machine. The individual sitting there, that's their job. Those machines were pristine. When they came back from the field, they were in perfect working order. It only took a mild dust off to take and make these things work. Where a copier is a group machine. And people just really don't care about that. And so we got really good working machines, older models that do a lot of power typing, have a lot of applications out there still. And we got a ton of them. And it's lugging down our books because that's on our inventory. So we got this off inventory we got to get rid of. They ran a sale. I mean, they got they figured out what was the minimum price we could do to break even and maybe added 2% to that. And this is in a division that's making at that time between 60 and 60% on some of the products. I did a product that was almost 100% margin. And so anyway, so we're taking a small margin on this thing, and we do a special sales promotion in the field. Well, lo and behold, the field sold them, and sold them so much they outran their capability to take and install them. So I'm sitting there. I'm on a very advanced program at the time, and it has gone through one of the cycles that new programs go through. I don't know if you guys know about product development, but you have your ups and downs. You'll be busy one day like crazy, and then they'll have to take and do a redesign or add a new feature or something like that. Because back in engineering, things get in a lull, and I was in a lull. And my boss walked in and said, Can you install one of these? Well, I used to back in the days when I started, very early days. I was about 26, 27 years old, maybe 30. And I installed these things. So I volunteered to do this. I did not thought about this in 30 years. But this lady, her name triggered that it was out there. She was in Denver, and this is the first thing that came up. So I wrote this. Well, now I did this several times. You can see here's that posting. This is what I posted for that. And I have all kinds of postings I put in here. You can go to this site. It's a public site. You can get in there and look at it. I don't think you can join it without being an ex-Xerox employee. But that was, by the way, the Xerox Leesburg Trading Center, and that triggers a memory because I spent a lot of time there auditing classes when we designed training classes. This was the this is the famous Alto product. I had found that in a museum in Atlanta, that I was enjoying that. My son took me there to take and show me some products I worked for a company by the name of Hayes. And I walked in the door and this thing was there, and I like just stumbled over it. I had totally forgotten about this thing. This was considered, there's a book out that says Funneling the Future, and Xerox invented and ignored the first personal computer. And it's pretty tough on Xerox, but the fact is that this became a star. And Star was reasonably successful. It had its problems, and I will freely admit that. But I was involved with Star, and I was involved with Alto. Let me see. There's another one up here someplace. Let's see here. Let's say this is lots of guys don't even know some of these products. I mean, we got 300 megabyte drive floating around in here. Here's my posting on who I am. And here, this was a product that was done only in the Xerox stores. It had significant challenges associated with it. It triggered as soon as I posted this thing, I set it down. People started asking questions about it. You'll see I got 18 comments down here. Those triggered questions and so on. So I started collecting these. I was looking at these, and I had this a moment, that people have. And the first thing that struck me is this could be incorporated into a memoir. Now I found a way of moving from and writing my memoir that I've been trying to write, or family story or whatever, tell people what I did out there, because here's the stories. So I started copying each one of them to a piece of paper and throwing them in a folder on my workstation. Well, soon you've got a lot of pieces of paper, a lot of stories, and you need to organize it. So then I took and put it into, come on. Okay. I started organizing it in a folder. Now, this is right in my genealogy files right here. And I set up a folder, and I said, looky here. I set a folder up, called it my memoir, autograph, biographies, family story, whatever you want to call it. And first off, I set it up by companies, because that's really drove just about everything until I retired. And and the one that I was working on was obviously Xerox, because that's where I'd been for 13 and a half years, and that's where I started putting this stuff. And that's where I got triggered in. That's where I worked in the bid shop. And then I started organizing it. And the first one I did is 510. I just showed you that. Here's the Diablo high type, and here's the sale occurs. And that, okay. And here's another discussion. I thought this was neat. These were memory cards. They were like IBM cards. And that's how you stored the information on, like a cassette tape, or today we would use a stick memory, or a USB drive. And that's how we stored stuff. And we had some interesting stories. This lady, this one shared that I just had to say this. She rolled it up into the plat and just started typing on it. Well, that's what people do. We had a printer that we took. It was up here, this high type printer that we were showing at one point in time. And we had figured out that we could get 15% speed improvement in output. And that was a key thing in the day. And if we took and went over and dropped it down and came back and printed, and came down and printed, and so on. And we were showing that at a legal show in Austin, Texas one time. And I wandered through the audience and I asked the lady, what do you think of that? Look at that thing speed out, how fast it is and everything. She said, son, I'm about to retire, and I'm not about to take and learn to type backwards. It absolutely floored me. And that's the whole story that triggered up. My wife couldn't get over it. She's heard that story 10,000 times. But it's still, it's a story that fits in my memory, and I haven't even put it in here yet. I got to put that thing in here. But it's still in here. I got to go copy and bring it down. See, I'm still categorizing. So I'm categorizing it. The choices I made were products, places, people, and so on. I have plaques in there too, someplace. And these I use to trigger stories, as you can tell. And I thought it was a neat way of doing it. I hope this helps you to do the same. Our stories may be considered mundane, but to the children that come after us and our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, these things are important. How many times have you been asked, Dad, tell me about your father? What was a grandfather like? What was it like growing up? You hear all those things. Well, it's nice to have something to take and refer to when you get those questions. So let's see if I can get this all working back again. All right. I hope that is useful to you. I really would appreciate if everybody would tell me whether I hit the mark or not. And if you have any questions about how I did it, give me, drop me an email. It's in the backpack. And you all have a great day. As you can tell, it also boosted the heck out of my spirits.